There are rules you follow every time you drive. Stopping at lights, staying in your lane, watching your speed. But there are also laws, real, enforceable laws, that most drivers never learn until the moment they're facing a fine, a citation, or a legal notice. And what makes it more surprising is that many of these rules have been in place for years, quietly affecting millions of drivers who simply don't know they exist. Now here's the question. Do you think most traffic violations happen because people intentionally break the law or because they were never fully aware of it in the first place? Let me know your answer in the comments. Now let's take a closer look at how this actually works from a legal perspective. In my legal analysis, traffic laws in the United States operate within a layered system. At the top level, states have primary authority to regulate road use, driver licensing, and vehicle operation. This means that while there are broad similarities across the country, many specific rules differ depending on the jurisdiction. Historically, traffic laws evolved alongside the development of modern transportation systems. Early regulations focused on basic safety, speed limits, signaling, and right-of-way rules. Over time, as vehicles became more advanced and traffic density increased, states began introducing more detailed regulations addressing everything from lane usage to equipment standards and driver behavior. Courts would likely examine these laws under the principle of public safety, which is considered a legitimate government interest. Because driving is legally treated as a licensed activity rather than an absolute constitutional right, states are given broad authority to enforce rules that promote safe and orderly road conditions. Now here's where things become interesting. Many of the laws that surprise drivers are not new. They are simply less visible or less commonly discussed. For example, certain states have specific rules about how you must behave when approaching emergency vehicles, how long you can occupy certain lanes, or how you must signal in particular traffic conditions. In my legal analysis, the issue is not complexity alone, it is awareness. A law can be fully valid and enforceable, even if a large portion of the public is unaware of its details. From a constitutional standpoint, the Fourth Amendment becomes relevant when traffic laws are enforced through stops or roadside interactions. Courts would likely examine whether an officer had reasonable suspicion to initiate a stop, and whether the scope of that stop remained within lawful limits. The Fifth Amendment may also become relevant in situations where driver statements or actions during a stop are used in administrative or legal proceedings, though again, within structured legal safeguards. Now let's talk about real-world impact. For most drivers, these lesser-known traffic laws only become relevant when they are enforced. A driver might receive a citation and only then realize that a specific behavior, something they considered normal, was actually regulated. In my legal analysis, this creates a gap between legal structure and public understanding. Laws exist to create order, but they rely on awareness to function effectively in everyday life. Supporters of strict traffic enforcement argue that these rules are essential for maintaining safety and reducing accidents. They emphasize that consistent enforcement encourages better driving habits and ultimately benefits everyone on the road. On the other hand, critics argue that some laws are too obscure or inconsistently enforced, which can lead to confusion and frustration among drivers. They stress the importance of clearer communication and public education to ensure fairness. Courts would likely focus less on how well-known a law is and more on whether it is clearly written, reasonably related to safety, and fairly applied. Now let's consider practical consequences. For drivers, the most immediate consequence of violating an unfamiliar traffic law is usually a fine or administrative penalty. In some cases, repeated violations can lead to points on a license, increased insurance costs, or temporary suspension. In my legal analysis, these penalties are designed to encourage compliance rather than punish unnecessarily, but they still require drivers to remain informed and attentive to changing regulations. Now, from a broader perspective, traffic laws continue to evolve. As technology advances and road systems become more complex, states are introducing new regulations to address emerging challenges, including distracted driving, electronic documentation, and automated enforcement systems. Courts would likely continue reviewing these developments to ensure they remain within constitutional limits and are applied fairly across different populations. Now, as we move toward the conclusion, the most important takeaway is this. Traffic laws are not just about avoiding tickets. They are about understanding the legal framework that governs everyday driving decisions. So here is the final question to reflect on. Do you think traffic laws today are communicated clearly enough to the public, or do you believe there is still a major gap between the law and what drivers actually understand? Share your thoughts in the comments. A respectful discussion helps bring clarity to rules that affect millions of people every day. And if you want more clear, fact-based explanations of real-world laws and how they affect your daily life, make sure to subscribe for future breakdowns. Because at the end of the day, the road is not just a place we travel, it is a shared legal space where awareness, responsibility, and understanding all come together.